Hey, what's happening? This is Steve. This is Slow News Day Live. It is Sunday night. I am here with my good friend Jason Carney. Uh, Both of us finally have a moment where we are not knee deep in work. Uh, so we're gonna go over some fucking lunacy. How you doing tonight, Jay?
I am physically and mentally exhausted, but I'm here to rock out. We need to get some information out and about. And unfortunately, this week we put out what, two, three shows. We're kind of slacking with the whole, working to provide for our families thing.
So I lit from Wednesday on. Uh, I was at both of my gigs. I had like maybe an hour in between where I could grab a shower, to overworked to really eat. So catch a little head change and then go to work, and that's been my life pretty much. So and then I get home and my fucking head is spinning and I can't, just immediately go to sleep, even though my alarm's going off at 5 again the next morning. Fucking, it's just days of that. So my body finally fucking gave out. And I got to sleep until like 8:45. It's
Oh,
fucking rad.
shit.
I didn't get home till almost midnight. Or after midnight, because that's when I got off of work, was
Right.
midnight. Um, and it was my goddaughter's birthday. Uh, and there was fucking god awful pop country being played, and like country rap, and the
Country
dude,
rap?
the
That's an
yeah,
abomination.
the dude who was playing it is hella big. He's the biggest dude at the barbecue. He's fucking standing over there telling jokes, and people are laughing, and they're not really funny, but he's hella big, so they're laughing and fucking
I get it.
yeah. And he's playing the fucking bro country, and like we all took turns telling him how bad his music was, and I broke down exactly what the Nashville Songwriting Factory was all about. Uh,
You're like, you remember the first chord? As soon as that first chord came on, that's when it started to suck. And then when the last chord was played, that's when it stopped sucking.
so we literally had to wait it out till his phone died, and his phone died pretty much about the time that we all sat down to eat and like break out cake. It was fuck Jesus. Um.
No,
Anyway,
thank you.
anyway, now that that's over and done with, um, I the other day was International Press Freedom Day, uh, and it was a Reporters Without Borders came out with the International Press Freedom Index and determined that the United States ranks 48th in international press freedom. 48th.
Oh,
We are uh we're in the top 50th percentile, but we're 48th in press freedom. Israel is 88th in press freedom. Saudi Arabia is one of the bottom country. It like our for as often as we tout the diversity of our media or our general freedom on every freedom index, we are nowhere near uh,
let
the
me
top.
let me pop the top 10 actually. I think people find this interesting. Number 1, Norway. Number 2, Finland. Number 3, Sweden. All the Nordic states that are supposedly socialist and evil according to Fox News and centrists. The Netherlands is number 4, Denmark is number 5, Switzerland, surprisingly Switzerland. Let's see, New Zealand at number 7, Jamaica at number 8, number 9, Belgium. And
Bell.
then from 10 through 15 is pretty interesting as well. You got Estonia, one of the former Eastern European states, is number 11. Portugal 12, Germany 15, 14 Iceland, and 15 Ireland. There's your top 15.
Um, None of those are the United States, Jay.
No,
None of
no.
them. Um, I brought this up earlier on my social media as a way to say, by the way, free Julian Assange. Um, Barack Obama had a habit of prosecuting whistleblowers.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and now Chelsea Manning is back in prison. Julian
Manning,
Assange,
Snowden.
yeah, Julian Assange is all but awaiting extradition. Um, I hope that the people in Australia are making a lot of noise to their government about this. I hope they are. I see encouraging things on Twitter, but Twitter's a bubble. It's a fucking, it represents a tiny little corner of the universe. I had Jared back on this week on the podcast. If you guys haven't checked that out, please go ahead and check that out. It turns out that Jared Beck is not a monster. It's really weird
No
how
way.
if you sit down and you talk to a person, um, and
I
you
heard.
learn that maybe because you started to believe in the fucking cartoon, you acted cartoonishly, but your actual ideas, your actual thoughts are not, monstrous in nature. It's fucking wild. I definitely like. Again, go check that out if you haven't. Fucking thanks again to Jared for coming on the show. I got to briefly meet Elizabeth, his wife. That was fucking awesome.
That's why people got to get on. I mean, this is quickly turning into a multi-platform media endeavor that you're setting off here. And I honestly, the people that you're talking to, nobody else is really talking to. And it's not because they have a lack of ideas or a lack of panache or a lack of a viewpoint. It's because most of the other people are trying to find viewers and money and fame and wealth and these funny things that have nothing to do with trying to push forth a political message in which benefits the entirety of our population and our world. What happens to Julian Assange matters. What happens to Snowden matters. What happens to Manning matters. These are just a few of the individuals that are persecuted by the United States. What happens in Venezuela matters. What happens with our relationship with Saudi Arabia after Khashoggi, speaking of press that come under fire, it's everything that we talk about here has a point, and it may strike a chord with people either positively or negatively. That's not our issue. Our issue is to go out there and talk to people and try to get the unvarnished truth from those that are directly in the front lines of whatever the particular issue that we're covering that day. Um,
Well, and
whenever
I've
you're
made it absolutely perfectly clear on the podcast that the aim of the podcast itself is to bring people together to find non-governmental solutions within their own communities in a way to shore them up and become more sustainable, because I don't believe that we have a realistic avenue through the electoral process within the limited amount of time that we have in the scope, regardless of whether or not you believe that climate change as presented is real. Is the story. We're killing ourselves at a rapid rate, and now one of the solutions is geoengineering to block out the sun. Like, we're killing ourselves. That's bad policy. Bad policy is killing us because we don't elect our officials. Our officials are pre-selected. It's
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm just curious. Do we not have the technology to massively produce green energy that could sustain this country?
so here's the thing, man. If we're talking about real 0 point energy, then we're going to have to bring in a friend of mine to have that conversation. But
I think we need to.
we have the ability to produce cheap, sustainable energy. We also have the ability
Okay,
to do
so,
0 point energy, but that's an entirely different conversation, and that's going to be
well,
really
wait.
fucking weird.
There's a solid point here. We do have the potential to do this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so instead, what we're going to do is create cloud cover, which could enhance a greenhouse effect, which could kill us even quicker. Am I to understand this? To quote unquote
Sulfur
block out the sun.
dioxide,
We
barium,
would rather
and
alter nature in an irrevocable way than go with green energy, which will create jobs, which will save our environment, save it for our children, our grandchildren, so on and so forth. Create an economy that can thrive and create good paying jobs. So you're telling me it's better to block out the sun than to go with green energy production in
um,
mass.
so what they're going, I don't see why that wouldn't be a why not both moment for the people who um are steering the mechanisms. I don't, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the two largest manufacturers of solar panels are BP and Shell. All right,
Right.
no, British Petroleum is
Hashtag
the largest
ironic.
manufacturer. Um, it's not like they don't know or they don't have skin in the game. It's just the immediate short-term profits on petroleum far outweigh solar because solar is more sustainable. That's a drawback if your model is short-term immediate profits or you view long-term profits in something that spans like a couple of generations.
I'm just confused because with capitalism, but it's been bashed over my head. That's the only way you can be innovative enough to enhance humanity is via capitalism. I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm confused. We have the
Well,
technology, we
okay,
have the
let
capability. It could create well-paying, good-paying jobs, and yet we would rather go with a limited resource, whether it's limited by tomorrow or 10 years or 20 years or 100 years from now, being petroleum, than with green energy.
yeah, well, that
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
that's the thing. That's scarcity. That's for scarcity that raises demand. If if you can curtail supply, you can
Mm-hmm.
charge what you want for it. Late stage capitalism is squeeze every penny out of every peasant because we're building bunkers, motherfucker. We're riding this out. We're getting ready. And I don't say that like lightly or as a joke. There's a wonderful article again. CNBC printed it about the bunker billionaires. Like it's fucking this shit's real. Um, I was having a conversation uh, with someone that was like, okay, well, what happens? I think automation is going to come really fast. I think Andrew Yang is right about that. I think this is going to be a thing that we're going to see rapid automation. And
Okay.
and do you understand how in this economy that would create like a massive job and homeless problem? You
Also, we
can't.
could look at the flip side of that though, and with different programs that socialism could provide, we could have that automation, and we could have people free to pursue the arts, medicine, research, writing. I think you put it as the next great American novel or the first great American novel. I mean, we could work this to our advantage, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the end all be all of humanity's existence if we go into automation.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want to live in the kind of society where automation is something that I'm not looking forward to. Like it's a
Right.
testament to the fucked up planet that we live on and what we've done and created as our business model to be like, holy shit, it's gonna suck when this happens. And I understand that it doesn't have to be that way. That's again another reason that my argument is that we can't do this through an electoral process. It's the system itself is designed broken for that. So we've got to be the people out in the street going, hey, fucking fully automated gay luxury space communism, or we're fucking dropping guillotines, motherfucker. Like, we're done playing around with you. This is real shit. Like, healthcare now, like, right to live. Fucking, we can call it rent control, or we can call it fucking like
living wage.
Whatever, dude. We can term it however we want, but if our livelihood is based where we live now, we're going to build a life here, until we can fucking explore both inner and outer space together, like Bill Hicks said.
Well, we got to figure out the whole cancer thing, because I mean, the smoking thing, it's going to catch up to my ass. So if we're going to go into automation, let's go ahead and let's hook it up. Let's get the kids into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let's go ahead and let's just hustle up and do this now. Because here's my biggest thing. We'll get back to the press in a second. My What's always astounded me is, on one hand, you could see the brilliance of humanity, whether it be through law, through the judicial system, through poetry, through books, music, whether it be a medium like TV or the internet. There's a litany of things that show the brilliance of humanity. But then the diametrically opposed component, which involves capitalism every time, is we have a choice in front of us right now in which we can resolve to solve all the issues that face us without it necessarily needing to be an economically viable thing. The green economy, the Green New Deal, green jobs, whatever the hell you want to call it, is a brilliant first step in getting humanity, not just the United States, but humanity, ahead of the curve when it comes to stop being parasites and start cohabitating with the earth. I mean, that just makes sense. This is the only rock that we can live on that we know of. So why not?
Are
The
we
second
talking
thing is,
about the Green New Deal, the non-binding resolution is presented by AOC, or are we talking something more like Tulsi Gabbard's Off
we're
Act?
talking more Tulsi at this point, and this non-binding bullshit can take a flying leap. Because at the end of the day, what I wanted to point out is I think you and I are starting to say something that people talk about, but they don't say it in public. I always make the joke torches and pitchforks. You know me, you've known me for years. I've always tried to find the peaceful, democratic solution to these issues. And repeatedly, I'm stomped down by the government, by the electoral process, and I kind of get slapped in the face, being like, hey, stupid. What our government and what people need to realize that oppose these positions to the point where they're suppressing it from getting out is that at a certain point, when you stop allowing people to do things peacefully to get change, they're going to do things violently to bring about change. And I think this show is one of those rare few shows that go into it without making it sexy, without making it necessarily uber entertaining, but just relaying the fact that either you cut your shit out and go the right way, or we can remove you from the position in which you have any decision making process. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should say on every live stream, like, besides free Julian Assange. Aside from that, is the reason we originally formed unions is because collectively bargaining for better worker rights was more polite than dragging the factory owner out of his home or office and beating him to death in front of his family.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get back to our roots, and we need that to be an either or option.
Same thing with the Nazis. I mean, you know how pissed off I get when it comes to the alt right. And people were pissing all over the fact that I know I was one with alongside Antifa saying punch a Nazi, and other individuals like yourself and the left, the actual left, who said punch a Nazi. It's getting stupid. We can't have dialogue with these cretins. We can't go out there and say, hey, dude, this is where you're wrong. Let's have a conversation. Now, you try to do that. You spend your life trying to do that. You get punched in the face. You get kicked on. You get spit on. And it's just, it's ridiculous.
So
So
I
I mean,
haven't
this is one of
seen.
those
I've
shows that
seen
I'm thankful for.
so I'm a I yeah. So I wanna ask you about this, man, because you've seen those videos passed around, the video clips of like, here's how you love a Nazi into changing his ways, and like, here's how I infiltrated the alt right to fucking change Nazis. Do you believe a second of that, or is that just fucking a bunch of garbage that like some company put out to be like, no, look, don't punch Nazis. It's okay. You can change it. You can hug it out with
I
someone who
think
wants you dead
I,
for being born.
I honestly think people have the capacity for change, but I think 99.9999999% of these people are so stuck in their horrible, short-sighted, evil ways that it's not worth it. You wouldn't go to Adolf Hitler and be like, "Hey, bro, listen, me being of Jewish descent, I forgive you, and here's a hug. Now, are you going to stop being a fascist?"
If you're watching right now, do you think that you can, if someone is ideologically opposed to you, like to that extreme, to the extreme to where they would
Kill.
self-identify as a Nazi or a fascist or a radical Islamic terrorist. Ooh.
Can I
Oh,
clarify something?
hmm.
This isn't a Republican Democrat thing. You don't go to your buddy who is pro gun and you're anti gun and then punch him in the face. Let me be absolutely abundantly clear. Fascism's end goal is genocide. Its end goal is to make the wealthy even wealthier. It is to create a quote unquote pure society. Now, when you have an ideology that screams for the death of anybody, you cannot allow that to proliferate. You can't talk it out, and it can't be discussed in the marketplace of fucking ideas. There's no room for that. So when I say punch a Nazi, I'm not saying punch a Republican. I'm not saying punch a Democrat. What I'm saying is going after the individuals whose ideology is not only hate, but murder. They want to kill men, women, and children of Jewish heritage, of African American, Latino, Latina, Eskimo, oh, excuse me, indigenous. My bad. That was my mistake. Asian, Pacific Islander, anything that isn't supposedly pure white.
I've got
So
friends
how do you
who
have a
like, yo,
conversation with
there
that? You
there
don't
aren't
have a
any real
conversation with that.
Nazis. I've got friends that are convinced that there aren't any real Nazis, and I'm like, yo, dude, I grew up in Anderson, Indiana. There's a town called Elwood that's not far from me. That was the Klan capital of the state, and fucking that shit's real, dude. No, 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 no. Well, that was when you grew up. I mean, now, like, yeah, I live in Santa Cruz County. There's a fucking Stormfront office like in town. Like they fucking hang out on the beach. Fucking why they're fucking dude Jello by Afro. Fucking Nazi punks. Fuck off. Like they're a fucking California surf skate fucking punk though. Like they exist. They do. I promise you. They're like and like
The
it.
other thing,
I understand because there's a place that um Graham Elwood has a great video up that disseminates like, okay, look, here's the 6 companies that own all of the media, and all of their talking points come from AP Reuters and but AFP or something, or API or
right,
something like that.
the wires.
And all 3 of them get all of their information from fucking the White House, the Pentagon, and the CIA. And that's where all of your media is, that's where all of your cited sources are coming from in the vast majority of your media. It's a great video. Go check it out. Go give Graham some love if you're not already. Um, fucking support independent media wherever you find it. Like fucking go do that. Like you know, um, give them money if you have it. Fucking do that
Even
shit. If
$5 a
I
pop
when
can
we
go
get
a
our
long
shit
way. $5 a month can go a long way with some of these individuals. Enough of those come in, they can sustain themselves and they can actually reinvest back into making a better production, getting more information, getting more people out there to get more information for you. That's the beautiful part. A lot of people look at the online deal and they say, oh, they're just trying to get rich. It's not that. For example, Steve and I work our asses off during the day, try to fit in research, and then come on here. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's not in the pursuit of wealth. It's in the pursuit of getting the truth out to people so that they can critically think for themselves and come to a reasonable solution. We hope a reasonable solution.
Nobody in independent media would be doing the shows that we're doing if regular media was doing their fucking job. But they're stenographers to power, they're access journalists, and they're fucking bought, controlled fucking puppets to power. So we have to do shit like this because otherwise we'd all be listening to pop country and thinking it was fucking real life.
We are the real fourth estate at this point.
Sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, I'll wrangle it back in and go to your original topic and talking about freedom of the press in the United States being 48th, according to Reporters Without Borders. And the ACLU actually did a really interesting piece on Julian Assange on April 15th by Ben Wisner and Jamil Jaffer, or Jaffer. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. And it starts out with what to make the indictment of Julian Assange. The Justice Department hasn't crossed the line that many feared it would. It hasn't charged Julian Assange for publishing truthful information about matters of public concern. That kind of prosecution would have been unprecedented in the nation's history and would have opened the door to criminal investigations of other publishers. Instead, the indictment accuses Assange of having conspired with Chelsea Manning to hack a government database. Hacking government databases isn't protected by the First Amendment and isn't a legitimate part of investigative journalism. That worries me as a supporter of the ACLU because it is, in fact, a legitimate part of investigative journalism. Because if you go by this theory, then what's their faces from the Nixon administration's downfall, Woodward and Bernstein, I think, they weren't legitimately gathering information.
Woodward and Bernstein. Yeah.
Thank you. But in theory, they're celebrated for, and they did fantastic work, don't get me wrong, but for their investigative journalism. And if you were to extrapolate the fact that they didn't have the internet back then, but their means of pulling in information, by what the ACLU is saying, it isn't a legitimate part of investigative journalism. And that bothers me because I am a huge proponent of the ACLU. And I read this and I found it to be bothersome. Now, they go on to say the indictment is troubling nonetheless, and it goes in further how this is an attack on the First Amendment. But that last statement right there of it not being a legitimate part of investigative journalism and emphasizing the fact that it isn't protected by the First Amendment, this crime wasn't committed on American soil. So at the end of the day, I understand the Constitution rules wherever the United States has its feet at, but it doesn't make a difference. It's like it's trying to kind of gear the audience reading this against Julian Assange and automatically thinking he did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the ACLU, and I just gave the names. You can send them love letters if you choose to, but, do your thing. But, and they do go further. If you read the article that's on ACLU website, they do go into the fact that this is a deeply troubling attack on the First Amendment. And they are also, though Assange allegedly agreed to help Manning crack a password, cracking that password apparently wouldn't have allowed Manning to access more files than she could have already accessed.
No,
they do point out facts of the case.
That's a disingenuous argument, man. And Glenn Greenwald has broken that down like 5 billion times over.
You see my issue.
The ACLU saying a disingenuous argument. The ACLU can fucking they're there for civil liberties, and as they're acknowledging that it's an attack on the person, they need to acknowledge that that's fucking standard practice for every investigative journalism going back for fucking since we've had. Hey, I need you to use your boss or use somebody else's key card to fucking get in here so that you don't fucking immediately get the finger pointed at you. For your protection, log in as somebody else. That's fucking standard shit. Like,
if the ACLU is giving credence to this nonsense argument, we're in a fuck ton more trouble than we already thought we were.
so when I had John Kiriakou on the podcast, and he said the district court where Julian Assange will be tried if he's extradited here and tried here is known as the espionage court. Everyone on the jury has immediate family or a relative involved in the Beltway. It's right there in the fucking Northern Virginia fucking bubble. Like, Langley is a literal stone's throw.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not going to be set up against Assange at all. It's going to be a fair and equitable process in which he will be able to bring forth an argument, and everything will be taken care of on the up and up, and it'll be, I can't even keep going.
If two of Jared Beck's witnesses managed to drop dead when he was suing the DNC for fraud, can you imagine what Assange's lawyers' subpoena list is going to look like and whose names are going to be on that?
It's going to be a who's of obituaries. I could put it to you that way.
That's why they can't ever televise it.
It's what amazes me is that a small portion of the population, even being told this, or excuse me, a large part of the population, after being told by people like ourselves about the actual ramifications of this, still haven't gone to every state capital, to every area in which the media can look at them and start demanding an end to this charade. I'm just amazed.
I have this conversation with people a lot because I talk about Julian Assange a lot because I think it's important that people in my real life interactions understand what's going on here, and a lot of them are disengaged completely because they're the non-voting population that knows it's bullshit. So they're the largest voting bloc we have.
43 to 48% at last count.
And then the next largest block is independents. They don't if they have an opinion one way or the other about Julian Assange, it's only what they picked up peripherally, and that's all CIA talking points. If I talk to someone who is engaged, it's guaranteed CIA talking points. There are very few people that I run into, even in fucking weird as fuck Santa Cruz County, that are like, yeah, 100% free Julian Assange. Yes, you're fucking right. You know, and we'll like immediately be like, oh yeah, no, and jump in with all of the shit that Julian Assange has brought to light and what that represents, and fucking know that the Obama administration considered prosecuting him, and that is a very, very underrepresented portion of the sample, man. That's why I think it's important to talk to people in real life about it. Jesus.
Don't die on me, man.
Oh no, that's not gonna happen.
UN calls for Julian Assange's release from UK high security jail just 2 days ago. It's amazing.
Yeah, the UN is consistently sided in support of Julian Assange. They've come out with statement after statement saying, hey, you know, maybe don't lock this guy in an embassy. You know, you should put they're not really helpful though, because nobody considers their fucking opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like the entire Trump administration, our UN's ambassador's job has been to go there and like laugh in the face of their human rights council and be like, all right, now here's my whole ass and fucking we out, and like that's their gig. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And it happened with Bush too, and then to an extent, like John Kerry, was known for being a hard ass. Fucking Hillary goddamn Clinton.
I'm
Maniacally cackling about the gruesome death of Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm amazed at the hypocrisy that occurs when you're talking about the two major parties. In this case, you'd have Democrats jumping all over, speaking the ills of Gaddafi and how horrible he was. Yet, if you were to do a little bit of research, you would see that Libya wasn't this dark apartheid, this evil place, this hermit kingdom, but an area that is far better then than it is now. You'd have Republicans saying that she's the Antichrist. Yet, if you were to flip it, and there was a Republican doing that, the arguments would be the same, just a different side.
That's why propaganda works, because people think that they are sides. They're not sides.
That's what I'm getting at. It's the same argument on two different sides of the same coin. And when I say two different sides, I don't mean polar opposites. They're not covering the left. They're not covering, well, the Republican Party is doing a pretty good job of covering the fucking nut jobs on the right. But at the end of the day, you look at it and you gotta be like, wait, these are the same arguments. It's just a Democrat saying it this time instead of a Republican, and vice versa. Shouldn't that be an indicator to people that there's something seriously and profoundly wrong here?
Well, again, propaganda works. That's why everything is a one ginned up outrage after another. That's why the news isn't news, it's emotionally driven fucking buzzwords
Dribble?
and content that is created to get you to react one way or another, but react. Don't think or process or digest, just react. And if you're programmed to react to Orange Man bad, then you're only going to watch the channels that tell you Orange Man bad. And so you can react and you can get mad and you can run off to your bubble and you can tweet about it and people can fucking give you likes and you can get that dopamine and you can fucking go to work where you're fucking, I don't know, fucking facilitating in war crimes for the health insurance, like it.
I love where you're going, man. This stream of consciousness is awesome. Don't stop. I want to see where this train ends.
My point is when that's what you're subjected to, when that's your cycle, when that's how you process events, you're going to react to new information or different information the same way as if you were a true believer and I showed you all kinds of books that proved that your belief was in fact a Bronze Age myth built largely to keep not only the working class down, but to subjugate every nation it conquered.
Let me jump on here. There's a report that came out, Press Freedom Under Threat, International Press Freedom Mission to the United States, May 2018, by Article 19, Committee to Protect Journalists, Index on Censorship. Now, mind you, this came out in 2018, but it's kind of creepy in its accuracy. And staying to the point, because I'm going to cite this a lot because this is absolutely fantastic. They summarize, as soon as I can locate this bad boy. We got past the introduction. Work with me here. I just had it up, and you had to be a little fascist. Da, 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 da. Okay, essentially what it was talking about is a deterioration of rhetoric in this country, and how this is the international press, mind you, going for the protections of journalists. Again, you can look it up, www.article19.org. It's a great organization that I've really gotten into as of late. There's been a change in the political landscape in which media workers have found themselves, particularly over the past 2 years. The rhetoric that Trump and his administration have used to disparage and to discredit the media before and after the 2016 election is of grave concern. Political leaders' words have ramifications beyond the immediate news cycle. It appears that members of the public and other local authority or political figures have felt emboldened by the media strategy of the current administration, and journalists have found themselves subject to increasing abuse, harassment, and threats, particularly online. Press freedoms rely on the safety of journalists and their sources. In order for media freedom to thrive, journalists need the freedom to report and access information in the public interest, and we need political representatives who facilitate this freedom, even when they receive criticism. Now, they just cited Trump, which is an absolute fact when it comes to attacking the press, but you could also find that on the Democratic side as well, when they attack the press for being mean spirited and whatnot, going after Fox News, for example, in the
Right
way that they do.
right now, Joe Biden is catching heat for having a "I'm not answering any fucking questions" policy at his campaign events. Right
And he's
now.
running for what?
Co-chair of Citigroup's board in the White House, I think is what he's running for. No, I mean it's and Hillary Clinton had the exact same policy when she was running. No, I'm not answering any questions. Go fuck off, peasant. No, I will sit down for interviews that I have scheduled and scripted, and I will go to events where I have my microphone and maybe a couple of people that we've brought in and screened can ask questions. That's it. That's how things operate in the land of the free that ranks 48th in press freedom. 48th in press freedom.
And here's another thing to follow up on source protection. We're talking about the means and methodology in which Assange collected evidence to share with the world the war crimes that the United States has been involved with in Iraq. Investigative journalism relies on sources and whistleblowers to uncover major stories and issues of public interest. Over recent years, the protection of sources has been weakened by a number of prosecutions. Now, mind you, this was before Assange got arrested. This is May 2018. So you could add that to the fire. By a number of prosecutions, particularly the increasing use of the Espionage Act of 1917. These prosecutions rocketed under the Obama administration. Other troubling developments include the Department of Justice seeking to review its media subpoena guidelines, Attorney General Jeff Sessions failing to promise that he will follow the current guidelines, and assertions that the department will seek to imprison whistleblowers. Now, they went after Trump on deteriorating rhetoric, and then we go after the Obama administration for source protection. Now, mind you, these are international journalists seeking the protection of journalists all over the world, including the United States. They're pointing out to you and they're sharing with you what their research has brought forth. How are we not having a bigger conversation about this at this point?
Well, because, Jason, the United States media, again, is 90% of it is owned by the same 6 companies who all use the same 3 AP Reuters and API sources to get their information, and API and Reuters all get their talking points from the Pentagon, the CIA, and the White House. It's spun to represent varying degrees of left and right, and it's delivered that way. But you can go and you can read the exact same stories with the exact same originally cited sources, and you can read all of the same talking points. It's just how they want to couch it in terms of, far right US capitalism, or center right US capitalism, or social libertarianism, or fucking full on rubber pants Cato Institute, fucking Gary Johnson is my homie, fucking libertarianism, or fucking whatever the people who like still snort bad coke and read Ayn Rand at 40R, like
We promised we wouldn't bring up Paul Ryan in our conversations
But
anymore.
it's all the same talking points, is what I'm getting at. They're all disseminated from the same three sources, and all three of those sources are largely relying on information given to them in briefings from our intelligence agencies. It That's how the people that make $30,000 a day to gaslight you stay making $30,000 a day to gaslight you. They understand their role in this situation and they are playing the fucking game. You think Rhodes Scholars don't understand what propaganda is?
So you're saying there's an economic incentive for these people to continue doing that?
I'm saying that the economic incentive is what keeps them from thinking about how many investigative journalists have wound up dead or in prison.
They actually touch on this point: self-censorship. Journalists do not operate in a vacuum, and the press is subject to economic, political, and social pressures that have an impact on its freedom to report openly. The mission received reports, particularly from local media, where economic or political pressures has led to questions of self-censorship. If the issues identified in this report are not addressed, self-censorship could become a greater challenge for the U.S. media. What happens to media freedom in the U.S. also has implications beyond its borders. The mission found inspiration in many of the professional, brave, and determined journalists whom we met, including they go further into WikiLeaks and things of that nature.
So, Aaron Monte, I don't know if he was citing this report or not, but he was talking about the subject of self-censorship came up, and he said, part of that problem is the whole concept that we have of this culture that has institutional security, where if I'm in my bubble in academia, or if I'm in my bubble in corporate news, I can float out some pretty liberal ideas or some truly progressive ideas, as long as I don't wander outside of the other bubble. And I remember at the end of the day, like, I work for imperialists, and my goal is to expand the American empire and to ensure American hegemony and to make sure that my children that I am paying $18,000 a semester to go to private school are taken care of. That's what institutional security does. So that's where the self-censorship lies. You don't ever want to. Chris Hayes, fucking the world's tallest opie, that motherfucker was allowed to talk about Yemen for 3.5 minutes once. He's then allowed to cover when Donald Trump vetoes the Yemen bill.
Right.
Because now the war in Yemen is bad because Donald Trump vetoed the bill and it was bipartisan.
Yemen it didn't just flame up overnight. This has been occurring, and I'll never be able to pronounce the alleged terrorist group in there that initially started the Houth. I'm not going to try. It'll be embarrassing for all of us. This has been going on since the late Obama administration, if I'm not mistaken, the last couple of years of the Obama administration, in which we're still providing military weapons to
talking about
the Kingdom of
Daesh?
Saud.
Were you talking about Daesh?
Yes. No, not necessarily Daesh. There's it begins with an HOU. Give me a second. You go ahead and say whatever you got to say, but I got to find this out now because it's going to stick in my craw.
Holy fuck. You know what, man? I really, I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the show where I
2015.
was, huh?
2015 is when the civil war started there.
In Syria?
No. Yemen.
Oh, in Yemen. Okay.
This has been around for a minute. It didn't.
No, yeah, no, I know. I thought we started I thought we started fucking with them
Houthi.
in 2013.
It's the Houthi forces.
Well, yes.
Basically, ongoing conflict that began in 2015 between two factions, the internationally recognized Yemeni government led by Abu Mansur Hadi and the Houthi armed movement, along with their supporters and allies.
I thought that we had originally started fucking with Yemen in like 2013 because we were pointing to them as like locations for terrorist camps and we had sanctions, something like that. So I have friends that at the time were active duty special forces, and they were speaking to me off record about a bunch of things, and Yemen came up, and Iran came up, and a bunch of other countries that we weren't really supposed to be in came up. But it all goes back to that video of General Wesley Clark stating the 7 countries in the Mideast that we were going to that were on our to conquer list, and we've hit 6 now. Because we're bombing Somalia. Because Somalia was on that list, it didn't count as a Mideast country, but I don't know, it's strategic or natural resource. Unobtainium. It's got unobtainium. That's what it is. It's the portal to that fucking world in Avatar. That's where the unobtainium is. And I don't fucking know.
No. At this point, there's so much bullshit going on, and we have a press, not the independent press, but we have a press, the mainstream press, corporatized press, however you want to call it or phrase it, that keep the constant chaos and confusion going. And I again, this falls back to my original question. Knowing what we know and sharing this information that we have, and it catching on and people hearing it and understanding it and nodding up and down, how are we not having more outcry and demanding as a people an end to the nonsense?
There's a handful of different reasons, man, and I can deliver them from like comedic to depressing or depressing to comedic. It's entirely up to you.
You know what? Make me want the Prozac at first and then bring it back to comedy, because if you go the other way, I'm on the 7th story, man. I'm on it's lights out.
7th story in Reno. Yeesh. That's a lot
of all places to meet my end.
All right. I don't want to die in Reno. I don't even know Johnny Cash. I didn't make it, man. So the one of the depressing reasons is because we live in late stage capitalism in the middle of climate collapse, and we are debt slaves to fucking sociopathic oligarchs, and there is not an immediate way out of that that does not involve either violent revolution or the perceived threat of violent revolution. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is we have collectively decided that processing the reality that you just laid out is too much, and that really, when you step back and look at it, we're all pretty much the same. We're all getting screwed, and let me just get through this day so I can hang out with my kids, or I can go out with my buddies and grab a beer, or I can go get my dick sucked, or I can go fucking shoot hoops, or whatever, dude, whatever it is. Right. Just let me get through this day so that I can go do that, because I know that my voice doesn't matter. I'm just fucking one little guy. I can't do shit. You know, I think that that defeatism is something that is conditioned into our program. Like that's part of our programming. That you know what, like we get movies about beating the house. We get movies about a couple of people that, the little guy rises above. That's why we all love an underdog, because
Right.
we're conditioned to being the underdog always. We know our role. We understand where we are as regular working class Americans, and we're not in that club. Have I said anything objectionable yet?
No, I'm eating Paxil. That's about it.
Are you taking it with like a little bit of box wine? Are
Oh,
you
you
going
got
full
to.
Hillary
That's the
supporter
only
on
way
this
to
one?
fly.
Are you? You knock
Yeah.
it back with a mimosa.
You
Um,
know what? You know what? Mimosas for happy times. This is a mimosa-free
okay, I'll
situation.
tell you what. I'll finish my. I'll bring it back around, and then I will tell a lovely story about a thing called Mimosa Monday. And I
I'm
hope that
in.
I'm not fucking breaking any code by telling this story. But here we go. All right. Um, the final reason is because, as Bill Hicks said, it's just a ride. But people are really invested in this ride. They have bought into the idea that it's 100% real. All this shit is real. This is my stuff. This is my house. This is my family.
Right.
And when someone comes along and says, "Hey, it's just a ride," we kill them. Like that's how we do. Um, but if that's again that's the choice. We can choose to believe in the ride, or we can choose to recognize that it's a ride. We can. Um, when I was at the Renaissance Festival,
Best
yeah,
stories come from the Renaissance Festival.
for those of you who haven't heard me talk about this part of my life for a handful of years, I traveled around the country. Um, there are 32 permanent Renaissance Festival sites throughout the U.S. Permanent, the buildings stay up year round. Not that they have permanent Renaissance festivals, but the structures are there permanently. Um,
Renaissance forever.
you're in a spot for like the shortest time about 6 weeks, but usually 2 to 2.5 months, 8 weekends is the average show, and then you go 600 to 2,000 miles for your next 2 to 2.5 months. Um, uh, we would have in Arizona, and others, but where Mimosa Monday took place, it was in Arizona. We would have this thing called Kids Days, where during the week when most of the people did not work, the junior high and high school kids from all over the place would get bussed in to the Renaissance Festival, and people sell shit that was handmade by a grown up in the United States who put in a lot of time with expensive material and expensive equipment, and the shit was not cheap. And these fucking kids that my kids are now the age of would get put on a bus and sent to the Renaissance Festival to act like little shitheads for 6 hours, and people who worked there, it would respond in kind, and like all of the high dollar merch was put away, and people were putting out fake dollar nose rings and shit like that. Um, food sold and henna tattoos sold and stuff. It was a nightmare. 3 days in a row of this. So you had what happened was you had a 3 day weekend, and then 3 days of kids days, and then 2 more days of show, and then that following Monday it was Mimosa Monday,
Right.
where from pre-dawn really, but dawnish, you heard a champagne bottle pop, and a couple of people go, "Yay!" And then every time someone would walk up, they would be handed a mimosa, and the people that were there sitting and drinking mimosas would all shout, "Yay!" And whenever someone got up to leave, they would all shout, "Boo!" And, and this went on. I mean, cases and cases and cases of champagne and orange juice, coolers and coolers and coolers of orange juice. And this is in the middle of the East Valley Desert in fucking bumfuck nowhere, Arizona. If you've ever been to that show, you know what I'm talking about. Apache Junction is the closest town. There was I, it's not metropolitan, I guess is what I'm getting at. You
No
know,
hassle is what
yeah,
I'm thinking.
it's a rural setting. It is. Beautiful the superstition. Mountains are right there. They're supposed to be like lost gold in them hills. Like there are petroglyphs. It is a great place to take psychedelics. I encourage everyone to see full moonrise in the desert at least once in their lives. It's a beautiful thing. There's a species of cholla cactus that glows in the dark in the moonlight. It's fucking alien. It's wild, dude. Um, but Mimosa Monday is one of those things that will like always stick in my memory. And at any time I have been handed a mimosa since, like I am half tempted. Yay! Uh, it is a hard thing to shake, man. It really is.
I get it. Much like capitalism, apparently. Let's see. Your buddy there, Max Blumenthal, has been pretty active lately.
So yeah, I really wanted to talk about that, man. If you guys don't know, and while I'm talking to you guys, share the fuck out of the show if you can. We are trying to build something here. We think that we have a lot to bring to this. We have a lot to say. We have a good voice to speak on it with. We have the experience. The scope determines reality, and we have a very very wide scope um, to bring a perspective that you really aren't seeing anywhere else on YouTube. Like the shit that that
Shit
I've
being the
seen
operative word.
Is wild, dude. It's wild. Um, so we're let your people know about the show. Um, but if you haven't been paying attention ever since the CIA puppet Juan Guaido called for an uprising in Venezuela, the Venezuelan embassy in Washington D.C. has been under fucking siege by pro Guaido fucking at this point terrorists and the DC cops and the Secret Service, whose responsibility it ultimately falls to protect the people inside the embassy, are derelict of fucking duty. They are turning their fucking backs on the people inside. And if it was not for people round the clock, embassy protectors who are fucking risking their own asses to save the people inside who are just trying to eat and or take their medicine and live at this point, are fucking, if it were not for those people and people like Max Blumenthal and people like Esha and people who have been there to cover this thing, fucking I it would be a bloodbath in there. There would
Max
be bodies in there
retweeted.
days ago.
Max retweeted from Adrian Pine. People outside have 4 days and without pause been using lasers trying to cause us retinal damage anytime we come close to the window. At Secret Service is perfectly okay with this. Please keep calling them at 202-406-8800 or 202-287-0001. There's video of it. If you go to Max's Twitter, it's under Adrian Pine. She's one of the individuals in the building. Yeah, those phone numbers I put out 202-406-8800 or 202-287-0001 demand an end to this nonsense, these crimes that are occurring.
Max Blumenthal has video of him trying to get DC Metro Police's attention, showing the cop video of these people outside the door trying to break down the door to the embassy. He's like, will you go do something about it? They're all kick rocks, motherfucker. He's like, I live here. I'm a resident of Washington, D.C. I am asking you as a resident to remove these people who are committing a crime right there. Right there. You better beat it. This is on tape. This is on videos. Well, you can go to Max Blumenthal's Twitter, and check this shit out for yourself. Again, like when we say shit like this, you go verify what we're saying. If we haven't given you the link for it while we're talking about it, say so in the chat, man, and we'll let you know. Um, verify what we're talking about.
Right there.
I particularly will say wild shit a lot, but when I'm saying it, if I'm joking, I'm gonna tell you I'm joking. If if it's a fact that is just fucking insane, I will say here's the source for this thing in which I talk about. I had a friend when I posted the 48th and press freedom on my face page today, like, hey, just so you know, we're fucking up. It was like, hey, I would like to share this information. Do you have a source on it? And well, bam, here's where I got it. I got it from Reporters Without Borders, who put out the press freedom report. This is what they do. But it goes there,
And that's what people have to understand with independent media. Most of us go with citable, credible sources. We can directly deliver to you where we're getting our information from so that you can look at it and either verify it, dig more into it to understand it better yourself, what have you. We're not talking out of our ass when we come up with these shows. We're not, just going, well, it's bad. That's it.
Right.
We're giving you evidence. We're presenting as much evidence as possible to back up the assertions that we're making. And you're not going to find this in the mainstream media. You're not going to find this on things like quasi-progressive areas.
Holy fuck! Speaking of things so this actually happened to me at work the other day, where I was like, so we're staging a coup in Venezuela for their oil. Where did you hear that? John Bolton said it at a press conference. Elliot Abrams said it at a press conference.
It's all right there.
Rubio said it in an interview. What? No. Yeah. What you will see in mainstream press, and I can't fucking believe I am about to say this out loud, but was the other night Rachel Maddow did a segment.
Not Rach.
About it. The entire bit was her shedding a tear for John Bolton. Rachel Maddow.
I have this physical pain, and I don't know if it's a stroke.
Rachel Maddow sympathizes with poor. This is Raina Calic's tweet about it. Rachel Calic, shocking MSNBC segment in which Maddow sympathizes with poor John Bolton, who has a tough job because he wants to go to war against Venezuela, but Trump is not complying because Putin.
Oh.
So
I forgot the Dark Lord was involved.
So Maddow's segment, her title for it was "How Can John Bolton Go to Work Anymore?" Like,
really?
And it was in defense of, this poor guy who is just trying to do his job and overthrow this democratically elected president by installing a CIA puppet who went to George Washington University, who fucking 81% of Venezuelans did not know until he had declared himself president, so that this guy can privatize the oil so that Americans can get it. Why?
Got
Why?
it.
Why does Vladimir Putin and therefore Donald Trump hate American jobs in the Gulf Coast? Good paying oil jobs. Why does Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin hate that? Why can't John Bolton get his war? Because, ooh, motherfucker, John Bolton loves war.
That's a massive understatement. He's been involved with a couple.
I haven't again, I've been busy all day. I haven't checked. I would be surprised if by the time I get out of work tomorrow, if someone hasn't put together a mashup of all the times throughout Rachel Maddow's career that she has insulted John Bolton and called him a war criminal, if she's ever uttered that word on television, at least alluded to the fact that he is a nefarious and not to be trusted, crazy, unhinged maniac who fucking can only achieve erections when more than 3,000 people die in one day. Like, I want to see that mashup, and then I would
Now,
like to see
Matt,
that
go ahead.
with her piece talking about John Bolton. Yes,
Maddow was just
absolutely,
the
Ed.
center's
We
version
are
of
back
Hannity.
in cartoon land again. We live in a fucking cartoon. Rachel Maddow is shedding tears for John Bolton,
It's funny.
who, by the
Conservatives
way,
consider her a
while we're
far
at
left
it,
MSNBC host.
a fucking aircraft carrier just got sent towards Iran, and I want to check the whatnots on that. I know it's in the mailbox. But yeah, we're escalating with Iran too.
Oh yeah.
The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group to send a message to Iran to wake people up. Yeah.
Troubling warnings from Iran, the White House announced Sunday. A U.S. official with direct knowledge of the situation tells the threats were against both U.S. maritime and land based forces in the Middle East. The deployments are aimed specifically at deterring any Iranian military actions. Right. A statement from U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton reads: in response to a number of troubling and escalatory indications and warnings, the United States is deploying the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group and a bomber task force to the U.S. Central Command region to send a clear and unmistakable message to the Iranian regime that any attack on the United States interests or on those of our allies will be met with unrelenting force.
So if you remember, this was about an embargo that was trying to corner. God damn it, man! I'm gonna fuck this up. But we were responding to Iran. I think we just put new sanctions on Iran, and they were retaliatory
Mm-hmm.
because Iran was trying to strike a deal with China and Russia,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, because the whole Syrian pipeline thing isn't going the way anybody wanted. Iran and China and Russia were forming a petro partnership.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time, China and Russia are trying to create a one world currency.
Huh. Interesting. Bitcoin.
Fuck, but you know what, dude? I don't know where y'all sit on Bitcoin, but personally, like, at this point, they're digital beanie babies.
Oh yeah. expensive digital Beanie Babies
Yeah,
and
well,
very
Beanie
wildly
Babies works.
fluctuating digital Beanie Babies. But yeah, digital Beanie Babies nonetheless. I'm looking up Al Jazeera right now covering this particular situation. To a number of troubling Washington has said it will stop waivers for countries buying Iranian oil in an attempt to reduce Iran's oil exports to zero. It has also blacklisted Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard Corps. Why do they keep calling them elite?
Okay, man. Okay. You guys are gonna have to go and find the Bill Hicks bit about it. But he did a bit we used to call Saddam's army the
Oh, elite.
elite
Yeah. We saw
revolution.
how well that worked out.
And yeah, I'm not gonna buy any more of Bill. I'm not gonna do any more of Bill Hicks's material tonight. Go fucking
Needless to say, that's a nice way to create the hype train. It's like I don't know if anybody watches boxing. I do. I might be a savage. I don't care. There was a fight between Jacobs and Alvarez that happened last night, and then we're building it up as this is Alvarez's hardest challenge. Alvarez is, it's going to be the toughest thing he's ever had to do, and yet he won on points. And if you look at his previous fights, this is the hardest challenge he's ever had. He's never had anything harder. You just listen to the hype train. That's what it seems like the U.S. is doing whenever they bring up things like the elite Revolutionary Guards.
Oh, absolutely. It's again, this goes back to where is the information coming from? If the information is coming from AP Reuters or API, it's being hand delivered to them by the White House, the CIA, or the Pentagon. You're I can't say this enough. We got Ed in the chat saying sobriety test, reading war reports after 10 p.m. And you know what, man? Jason is reading the war reports, and I believe that he is sober.
Very sober.
I am discussing the war reports while high as giraffe pussy.
Well, I'm cruising about 30,000 feet as we speak.
It is. It has been a long week, man. It really has, dude. I was doing the gnarliest shit at my day gig. There was a property that was a grow property last year. They were completely out of compliance with their fire code. Fire department came up and was like, okay, look, here's what's going on, man. You guys are with fucking, you failed. You completely failed. So you can finish, but then you got to leave. So he's putting the place up for sale. We're making it not look like a grow property. So that involves getting it fire safe, which means clearing 10 feet on either side of the road. There's no house on the place, so we don't have to do 150 feet of defensible space, which is neat. But it's 10 feet either direction on the road, 16 feet above. The driveway is like 1.75 miles long. So here's me with my fucking broken leg with a gas powered blade trimmer on at 7 o'clock in the morning walking uphill. And fucking, I got a little bit of poison oak. I got to fucking techno it up when I get off of the live stream. Had to clear out a big meadow, had to fucking take a bunch of metal hog wire grow cages and stomp them down and flatten them and stage them for a dump run. 170 of these motherfuckers. I'm dragging them out of like dinosaur weeds, walking uphill or downhill on uneven ground, which is something that I absolutely love with my fucked off leg. But I fucking don't like being homeless. So
Yeah.
I did that and then went to work at my other gig for fucking 8 hours and then got up and did that. And I'm fucking, I'm smoking some goddamn weed today is what I'm saying. I also got a little bag of THC caramels that are 80 milligrams a piece. And I think I've been over this, man. My tolerance. I wish I was a fucking cheap date, but I'm not. I really do, dude. I really do. Like I hear people that are like, "Oh, eat half of this be careful. I ate half of this cookie and I laid down for 7 hours and I saw colors. I was tripping, man. I'm fucking. And while they're telling me the story, I eat one and then I crack open another one and I eat more. What the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I am making sure that I am not in pain for the next 4 to 6 hours. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do. What? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's where I'm at. I wish it was different. It's not. I long to be a cheap date. I long to be like, oh, you're right. That is to hit quit.
Oh no.
And I'm done. Wow. But it's not where
Right.
it's not. And I have taken like years off and right back. I mean, there's there's no like my tolerance went way down, no, dude, it's still fucking
Right.
240 milligrams gets me out of pain,
Right.
like approaching 500, then I get too stoned to cook.
The struggle is real.
But you're too high to cook, you're in trouble. You are.
Oh
You are. You better hope that there's like a bag of popcorn or some shit around.
yeah. Otherwise, you're fucked.
Right?
You're literally starving to death. You're not really starving to death, but you feel like you're starving to death. All right. So this is the part where I have to bid adieu because I have to get up at the ass crack of dawn
Oh yeah,
and
no, me too.
do my job.
Real quick, I wanna, and I'll share this because I gotta go too. Um, I'll share this with you. There was somebody that came in to where I worked, and they were like, "Hey, big line. They're about 4 deep. Just anyone. Does anyone have any advice about what to do when your car's out of reg and the sheriff that's in town also knows that your car is out of reg?" I'm like, well, so before we split tonight, uh, here's what you do, kids.
Helpful Uncle Steve.
You you back your car into a private lot where your expired tags are not visible. You go to a local eatery and you spend your coin in that particular local economy while you wait for that cop to get bored and leave or get called off somewhere else. If you don't have enough for a meal, go hit up the grocery store or the library, stay on foot. Eventually, that dude's going to go away. When he goes away, if you don't know what direction he went, but you know what direction you're going, never commit a misdemeanor while in the process of committing a felony.
Wise words have never been more spoken.
And that's about it for me for this
All
live
right.
edition
I,
of Slow News Day on May 5th,
I,
2019.
I
Um,
suppose with something like that, I should come up with something deeply insightful and impactful. Um, at the end of the day, Steve brought up that we're just one person, and apparently we can't do anything. That's not true. It's not a fact. If enough single people get together, it can form an incredible wave, an incredible army, an incredible group of people that can end the bullshit as it exists. Whether your vote counts or not, whether you feel disenfranchised or not, whether you feel like anybody's listening to you, or not is irrelevant. If you see that there's wrong in the world and you can do something about it, you need to step up. You may feel like you're an individual at the time, but you'll find out very quickly that there's a multitude of people that feel the same way as you do. It's up to you to stand up and have that courage and take on the fight. You're never the only person who feels X way or Y way. Just realize that, and stand up in your communities and actually do something. Because this exhaustive and stupid rationale of I'm only one person. You're not one person. You're not the first. You're not the first person in human history to come up with this thought. You're not that cool. There are others that feel the same way as you do. So stand up and do something. God, I'm the worst motivational speaker on the face of the planet. That's all I got.
All right, man. And yeah, dude, and to that too, man. We all to some degree live in a bubble. That doesn't mean we have to exist in a vacuum. We don't at all.
Yes, sir.
And you know me, dude. I'm fucking heads on pikes and general strikes or nothing fucking changes. Like that's where I'm at. Like I'm ready for that. Whatever gets us to dilithium crystal energy the fastest. You know me. Is hopefully we can connect like tomorrow night or Tuesday night for another one of these. But I'm back to more fucking yeah brutal workload. But yeah, we'll talk soon. I love you guys. Thank you for sticking around. We'll see you as soon as we can, and fucking good luck to us all.